Forgot to get my clicker. First time I did this, I only had like 12 slides, so I had everything on 12 slides. 30, 35. It'd be nice to find out who's on as well, because I think I just had a friend of mine send me that he was on.
Oh, okay.
Could I say hi to him? Yeah.
Ready? Okay. Welcome tonight, everyone. My name is Kara Ripley, and I'm the Adult Services Librarian across the way at the library. I'm so happy to be here with you tonight with Tim Decorah, who is going to be our speaker. For folks in the room, if you could be sure to silence or turn off your cell phones just so we can get a clean recording and stuff. And for folks at home, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat in YouTube or email me your questions. And we will have an opportunity for questions towards the end. So without any other announcements, I'll pass it over to Tim.
Okay, thank you for everybody coming out tonight. I just have a couple of quick thank yous. First of all, to Kara Ripley. She is the Adult Services and Outreach Librarian, so hopefully I got that right. She gave me a call, a little history, after a talk I did January 18th in Waunakee, and reached out and said, I heard you did a pretty good job over in Waunakee, and we'd love to have you come over. So she was my first person that called me after that little gig, so I was pleasantly happy. I was supposed to be here March 16th, I believe. 9th. March 9th, and there was a snowstorm that night, so we had to move it, and we moved it back to tonight. I also want to say a little shout out back there to the person on the camera tonight. That is Jordan. She is with OCA Media, which is the Oregon Community Access, so she'll be working behind the scenes. And I also do have some people in the crowd tonight. So my wife, Sarah, and as well as my son, Sam Decorah. Sarah is going to be my candy person today or tonight, so if you get an answer correct, she will be tossing you some candy. So either use the candy sandwich and catch it with two hands, or use the third hand and use the body and catch it with the body and wrap the hands around. I also have Pam and Trig Knutson. Pam is a former colleague of mine at Waunakee High School, and also Steve and Jody Ryan in the back. Both of them are colleagues. Steve was in the fire department with me, and Jody was my daughter's second grade teacher. So a few people in here tonight. So I'm Tim Decorah. I picked the topic or the title of my talk being Survive and Advance. For a long time I experienced anxiety, and I thought it was just a normal situation. And I spent probably, out of my 54 years on planet Earth, probably 51 of those years just trying to survive. And I thought it was normal to have a racing heart. I thought it was normal to just feel like I was always needing to go. go somewhere, do something. And after talking with some professionals, I found out that's not the case with everybody. So you'll hear along the way here why and how it occurred, which is I'll be telling my story. And now I continue to, down at the bottom, advance with trying to figure out more about anxiety, what caused it, how come it happened to me, and my life has become much more manageable. Not that it was out of control in any way, shape, or form, but again, I'll go over that a little bit as we go on. So I've got some slides, and at any time in the future, if you would like to get some more information, I will have my email address, phone number, social media, contact information, and you can get a hold of me and I will be glad to share anything. I did not create any of this on my own, other than the story I will tell. But I just have borrowed. I was a coach, basketball coach for a lot of years, a football coach, and really everything that I have has just been stolen. I steal from people that are good in the profession, and I use it, and I make it fit for me. So some of it's original, and some of it's been, let's not say steal, borrowed. So this is my family, and I'll talk about them a little bit. This is my daughter, Emily, in the middle. That's her husband, Jacob. They got married last summer. They'll be coming up on their first anniversary. Around them is my wife, my mother-in-law. My son on the outside is Will and his wife, Samantha. And then as we work our way that way, behind me in the middle is my sister-in-law, Molly, and her husband, Tom, and my son, Sam, who's also in the crowd tonight. So we'll be talking about them a little bit more as we go along. So, goals for tonight. I have some goals for myself, and hopefully goals that you can take something away from tonight's presentation. The first goal is for me to tell my story. Telling my story about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And in order for me to figure out what the root cause of this was, I had to do a timeline. I had to figure out when I had some of these anxiety situations, a couple of panic attacks in there. I had to look at what led up to that. And that helped me to figure out how I could get myself some help. And now, when those things start to come about, I can do something about it. Before, in the past, I could not do anything about it. I would have to just let it run its course. And I tried to get the panic to stop, get the anxiety to stop, and at times I couldn't. I had no coping skills, which is what I also am going to share with you as we go along. So you'll hear a little bit about my story. Hopefully I make you glad that you attended tonight, that you walk out of here with something. Going to coaches clinics and coaches conferences and teacher conferences. It is a successful conference, or tonight a presentation, if you walk out of here with one thing. And hopefully you do walk out of here with something on how to deal or appreciation for this kind of stuff. I will tell you how my life has become manageable. I wouldn't say that it was unmanageable, but at times it was. And you might not have been able to see the unmanageability going on in me, because after dealing with this for a long, long time, I got very crafty at hiding it. And what you couldn't see didn't hurt you. But it was really hurting me as time went on, until I had to do something about it. So I will talk about some of the little unmanageability, and then how my life has become manageable, in particular the last about year and 3 months. I hope to give you some coping skills that you either can use for yourself, or you can use for somebody that you know. So I would love to say, and I guess I would love to venture to guess, that all of you are here because of somebody else, or you're here because of a loved one that you would like for them to get some help, or you'd like to give them something that they can use for their own anxiety and mental illness. I would hope that there is no one here that has experienced some of the things that I had to go through to get to this point in my life. What has been given freely to me is what I'm doing to you tonight. I'm giving this away for free because I don't want to have anybody suffer the way I did throughout the years. And it wasn't all bad, but at times it was. So again, we'll talk about, or I'll talk about that. I want to give you a face to mental illness. And I get one of these. I've got one of these every year for 31 years. It is the school picture. So that was my school picture from this year. I teach at Waunakee High School, which I'll go through. But I want to give a face to mental illness so that hopefully if you see me in the future, you can say, hey, I saw that guy 3 years ago, and now look where he's at. So hopefully I'll venture and climb up the ladder from library speaking to speaking in big arenas maybe someday. Who am I? So I am a teacher. I currently teach and also coach. I've done it for 31 years. I currently teach in Waunakee, 28 of those years. It's hard for me to believe that I've been doing this long. I always think of myself as a 25, 26-year-old energetic person. I just happen to have been doing it for a long, long time. I started teaching in a small town just south of La Crosse and west of Madison by about an hour, a place called Hillsboro. Love that community. Very small, 180 students in that community. And they took me in after I graduated from college and gave me my first job. 28 of those years, actually I should say 27 of the years, I have lived in Waunakee, and I just recently moved to Madison, which I'll talk about a little bit. I'm a proud member of the Ho-Chunk Nation. A lot of people hear about Ho-Chunk with the casino and the bingo. They've done a magnificent job over the last probably 30, 35 or 40 years, taking some of that, the revenue from that and really helping their people. So I am a proud member. I'm a husband and father. My wife here is Sarah of 31 years. So how long have we been married? I just think about how long I've been teaching. I have Emily, my daughter Emily, and Jacob Peters, my son-in-law Jacob. Grandson, which I'll hope soon to be grandson. So hopefully we'll be seeing him at some point, and I got a little story to share on that. I also do have Will and Samantha Decorah. Will is my oldest son, and in attendance tonight is my other youngest son, Sam Decorah. So that is my family. Again, who am I? I will be a future Choka. Choka is pronounced C-H-O-K-A. It's spelled C-O-O-K. It means grandpa in the Ho-Chunk language. And again, I have a little more on that. Hopefully we'll be seeing a baby boy at some point soon. I hope I will not be going bald or have a pipe in my mouth. I may have a cane, but hopefully I won't. I am genuinely a lifelong learner. And I think the teachers in the crowd, my teacher friends, would say the same thing, that they're always trying to learn a little more so that they can make their students a little better. Okay, so that would be kind of me always questioning and wondering. I think that just comes with the territory of teaching. And then, Curious George. I am genuinely curious. I'm more curious about mental illness now than I have ever been, because I want to find out how come people get anxiety and what people do to get through that. So I read all kinds of books now. I'm probably on my 13th or 14th book dealing with people growing up and going through hard times, and what did they do to get themselves better. So I'm genuinely curious. I'm a high school and college graduate, and March 16th, was it March 16th? Yes, okay. No, March 15th. I just finished my master's in educational administration. I started back in 2015, took all the classes, 88, I think it was 88 Thursday nights over the course of about 2.5 years. And at the very end, I had to write a paper, a 40 to 60 page paper in third person. I abhor writing. I hate it, dislike it. and now they asked me to write it in third person. It was called a capstone. So I said to myself, I am not going to do this, so I'm just going to put it off. I'm not going to be a high school principal, not going to do it, and I put it off. Bad thing to do, especially if you suffer from anxiety. So that thing was on my chest, it was on my shoulders like a weight. And it was tough to deal with, because every time I would think about that, I would think about and feel like I was being bear hugged. How many of you have been bear hugged before and held just really tight? And maybe when you were a little kid, somebody came up behind you and held you really tight, and you tried to breathe, and you could only get so far. That's how I felt for the last 6 years when I would think about that master's project that I had to do. I also felt like somebody was pushing me down, and I just couldn't get up, and I couldn't catch my breath. I also felt sick. I couldn't go through thinking about that without feeling sick and nauseous. I basically did everything other than throw up. And finally, last fall, I just said, I got to do this. My wife has been hounding me a little bit to get it done since I didn't. And the not being a quitter in me decided I got to do this, and I got to get this done. So March 15th, I completed it, and it was like a huge weight lifted off my chest. I could now do this. I could take a full, fill my lungs with air, and I hadn't been able to do that for a long, long time. So once I finished that, I felt great. I had a speaking engagement in Mount Horeb on Monday night, and I went over there and did it, and it was very, very good. Got some feedback, and I came home, and what did I see on the counter when I got home? What do you think I saw? It's a big, thick envelope. What do you think was inside that big, thick envelope?
Your degree?
My degree or my diploma, my certificate. Can you toss her a piece of candy? Yes, she got it correct. Fire it over there. So I opened it up, tore it open, and there it was, my diploma from Concordia University out of Mequon. I finally completed it, and I felt great before. Now I just felt not only great, but I also felt some pride, and I finally accomplished that, and it was awesome. I'm also a Hall of Fame, in addition to being a great academia person. I am also a part of a couple of athletic Hall of Fames. I'm part of my high school athletic Hall of Fame, which I'll go through. Also College Hall of Fame. And most recently, they did this in 2020, but that was during COVID. They have a huge tournament at the House of Wellness just outside of the casino, and Ho-Chunk Casino up in the Dells. And they have a Hall of Fame that they've started. So in 2020, I believe it was the second class, myself right here, and this is my cousin, who is basically like my sister, April Thundercloud. We both were inducted into the Ho-Chunk Athletic Hall of Fame. This gentleman right here played a large role in my upbringing. He came to the Dells, our community, in 1986. And he jumped in and worked with our basketball program, and he had a lot to do with our community and our high school being pretty good back then. And I'll talk about that a little bit, but we were inducted a couple of weeks ago. I'm also a former, kind of gave it away a little bit, former high school athlete and a college athlete. I blanked it out, but I think I already gave it away, so that was me way back in the day. Also the first grandchild, okay? Which hopefully we'll be having, hopefully I'll be able to talk about that a little bit. There's me at about 6 or 7 months old. I'm not sure what I'm chewing on. Hopefully it's not a branch or a tree. I was a big chili guy back in the day. That's me about 4 or 5 years old. I don't know if you can see this, but I had a bandage on my knee. That was back when we would go out, and I don't know if any of you can remember this, but when I was younger, we would eat breakfast and we would go out and maybe come back in for a bite to eat, go back out, and the next time we'd come back in was when the sun was going down. So we were never in the house, we were always outside. Just a lot of great memories. And then this is my senior year. Pretty good looking kid, 17 years old. A little bit, the hair is a little bit longer. Hair's a little bit longer. So first grandchild, I have a lot of pride in that. This is who I am now. Or this is really who I was. This still lingers, but I suffer from something called GAD. It is generalized anxiety disorder. And this is the Google definition. Really the things that kind of pertain to me were excessive worry. I'd worry about everything. I'd worry about the past, I'd worry about the future, and occasionally I would be in the present. But most of the time I live my life a lot in the past and in the future, okay? I oftentimes was restless. I would probably be tired at times, but I would get through it. I would have trouble concentrating. I'd be irritable. I don't know if I necessarily had any of the muscle tension, but I did have trouble sleeping. Insomnia was my friend and not my friend for a long, long time. So again, we've got the dominoes down there, and my life really was anytime something happened or I started thinking about things, I would start to stack dominoes up. And I always say my anxiety and having it become unmanageable was very much like dominoes. And those of you that have played with dominoes, excuse me, the more you stack up, eventually what's going to happen? They're going to fall down. And basically my anxiety was very similar to this. This would be me worrying about the past, worrying about the future. Is my family going to be okay? I wish I would have did this back then. I can't wait to do this in the future. And then all of a sudden they'd all fall and I would be unmanageable. I'd be sweating, I'd be feeling nauseous, and I couldn't do anything about it. And that's how life was like for me for a long, long time until, like I said, I've got some of these coping skills that I'm going to show you here shortly. So crowd participation. I'm going to be asking for some help, and I'm going to ask you, and some of the slides and the things that we're going to do, we're going to actually practice without you maybe even knowing it. Some of the things that I use to get myself back to where I'm feeling a lot better. So I'll either point to you or I'll have my little helper here toss you a piece of candy if you get a question right. So if somebody gets a question right, I'll say blue shirt, I'll say black coat, okay? I'll say maroon. So I want you to answer some questions, and if you don't answer some questions, we're gonna go with the old eeny, meeny, miny, mo, okay? So, little crowd participation. All right, answer me a question. Where are we? Oregon. Oregon.
Oregon.
Okay, what else?
Oregon Senior Center.
Senior Center, Oregon Senior Center. Excellent. Black coat.
Ready?
Okay. What county are we in?
Dane.
Dane. Blue shirt. That was quick. State?
Sorry.
State? Wisconsin. Green shirt back there. Okay, let's see if great minds think alike. So we are in Oregon. Senior Center, Dane County, state of Wisconsin, USA. Somebody the other night said guest speaker. Awesome. What is the date? Think about all the ways that you can come up with the date. What is the date?
March 30th.
March 30th, maroon. Okay. There's a couple more. 2023, that's all right, we got the year. Thursday, yes. Okay, so we'll keep her going. All right, so it is March 30th. It is 3:30, third month, 30th day, Thursday the 13th. What time is it? I'm a little behind. What time is it? 6:54.
Oh gosh.
Any military people here? What time is it military time? 1850. Yes.
There's always one of these.
How much before 7? How much before 7? 6 minutes before 7. Or, let's see what we think here. So I'm a little bit behind, so I got to hustle. It's 6:45. I wanted to be there at 6:45. At this point, 6:45. Some of you older folks in here, 18:45. Or, I can't believe somebody didn't say this one, time to get a watch. So, what is the weather like? Cold.
Let's hope that's better. God, that was terrible. Sorry.
White, gray, all right? Gray, it is gray outside. Like the side of my, like your friend's hair.
Brewers needed you today.
Okay, so it is 68 and breezy. So if you ever think about it, the weather being like it is right now, in the 40s, possibly stormy. Last time I checked it when I was redoing the slides here a little bit, it was supposed to be partly sunny tonight. But I used to be a football coach, and I would tell the kids if they were complaining about it's too hot, it's too cold, it's raining, it's snowing, the weather's terrible, we shouldn't be playing outside. I'd always say, all right, guys, it is 68 and breezy. And that would change some minds a little bit. So basically what we did was we changed our mind. Whatever you were thinking before we started this little activity, I just got you out of it for about 5 minutes. So that's one of the techniques I use is, okay, where am I at? What am I doing? And I start to think about me getting present. And that's one of the things that has been key to my anxiety and getting through that is getting present. I was too often in the future and in the past, and I wasn't present. And I start to think about those things, and all of a sudden that anxiety goes away when I change my mind. So it's just a thought that comes in, and I always wonder, and I'm trying to see if I can figure this out, and if I can find out why we latch on to something negative or something that is going to make our heart race, something that's going to make our mouth get dry, something that's going to make us spin out of control. When there's 10,000 thoughts that we have throughout the day, why do we latch on to that? That's what I'm trying to figure out right now. Okay, symptoms of anxiety. So I'm going to go through what Google has, and then I'm going to show you what I've gone through. Okay, feeling of nervousness, restlessness, tense, impending danger. That was one of the things I had. Certainly panic, gloom and doom. Okay, definitely was always doing a lot of this. But since we have smartphones now, I could always check what's my pulse. Okay, I don't know why I would check my pulse, but I would check it constantly because I was wondering, oftentimes, might I have a heart attack? I feel like I'm having a heart attack. So that would go through my brain. Breathing would be rapid breathing at times. I don't ever remember hyperventilating, but I can certainly feel like I was getting to that point. Feeling weak and tired, I would be after battling my thoughts all day long. In addition to teaching and coaching, I was often tired at the end of the day because I also had the squirrel cage of my anxiety going with all of this other stuff. I don't have that as much anymore. But one of my favorite people up in the corner there, Wile E. Coyote, you got to ask for help. Okay, it's just like some directions. You got to ask for help. Anybody know who the person is in the middle? What movie that is? Airplane. Okay, give Mr. Knutson some candy. One of my favorite people here, SpongeBob. All right, you got the SpongeBob right there, gray sweatshirt. And who can name the movie here?
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. So one of the things I often do is I will throw on some YouTube and go and get clips from those when I'm feeling like I need to change my mind and laugh a little bit. So another technique that you can use. Here are my symptoms. These are the things that I would feel, again, not constantly, but at different times throughout just about every day. There were times where it was really bad, where I felt like I was having a heart attack. The first time I had a panic attack, I was on my way driving my 3 kids to Mount Olympus. It used to be called Family Land, and we're driving up there, and we're going to have a great old time. And if you've ever driven that little stretch between Cascade Mountain and the first Dells exit, there's 2 lanes, 3 lanes go down to 2 right there, and we're driving along and it's packed, bumper to bumper, both sides of the road. And I'm driving along and I'm wondering, I was getting a little tight shoulder. I was drinking my coffee. I'm like, man, I probably drank too much coffee. I'm feeling my pulse here. It's starting to race. I'm wondering, what's going on here? Feeling like I'm not feeling very good. And I couldn't get right. I was in the left lane and I couldn't get right. And I kept looking over. I'm worried about my kids. And I'm thinking, I'm going to have a heart attack. I'm going to have a heart attack and I'm going to crash this car and something's bad's going to happen to me and something bad's going to happen to my kids. And that was racing through my mind. We're going to have a 50-car pileup and it's going to be because of me. And I couldn't get left. I'm trying to get left. Finally, I got left. I got off the interstate. I took all the back roads because I'm from the Dells. I took all the back roads to my mother-in-law's house. I laid on the couch for about 5 minutes and I said, her name's Mary Alice. I said, Mary Alice, you got to take me to the ER. I think I'm going to die. And that was probably one of about the 3 or 4 times where I felt the worst. There were a lot of times where I felt close to that, but that was probably one of the 3 or 4 worst times that I felt in my life. Is I thought I was going to have a heart attack, and I thought I was going to die. I got to the ER. They got me to relax. They got me talking about other things. They were asking me 55 questions, and finally the guy said, "How do you feel now?" And I said, "I actually feel better. You asked me 55 questions. I feel better." And he said, "I think you were having a panic attack." I said, "What? That's not me. I think I just drank too much coffee." Nope. So that was the start of me getting some information about this because I had no idea what a panic attack was, but I had one, and it was not very comfortable. Shortness of breath. There were times where I would be short of breath. Oftentimes, my shortness of breath would come on the way to school, driving to school. I had about a 5-minute drive to school from my house, and there were times where I was so anxious about making sure everything was ready for the students, making sure I was ready to go. Do we have, can I get the right equipment ready for class? We need this certain amount of people for this game, blah, 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 blah. And I would be driving and I would think to myself, I'm gonna have to pull over. I gotta pull over by the gas station. I gotta pull into the gas station parking lot because I feel like I'm going to faint. And I would get short of breath until I would just sit there, all right, you can just make it. And I would self-talk my way into getting back on the road and I would go. And that happened quite a bit. Not a fun place to be. Nauseous, okay? I hope I didn't look like that guy, but there were often times where I felt sick. I did everything but throw up. I felt my stomach didn't feel good. I just sometimes would go in the bathroom and just want to feel, I just need to get sick. I know it's going to make me feel better, but I could never do it. So I would be every place but getting sick. Lightheaded, we talked about that on the drive, getting lightheaded, short of breath, twitching. I would do that all the time. I remember one of the times we went to spring break in 2013. We went to Mexico. We left the country and off we went to Mexico. And I was worried about making sure we got there, making sure the room was good, making sure the kids were happy, making sure everything was all in line. And I'm sitting down at the table waiting for dinner. And all of a sudden, my leg is just, I'm tapping the floor. And my wife said, "Tim, stop it." And I really didn't know I was doing it until she said, "Quit." And I had known I was doing it before, but never really thought about that until I started looking at myself. When I felt nervous, I was just doing this, tapping the floor. So I would get the twitches. I was twitching all the time. I take that back. I wasn't all the time, but when I got nervous. High blood pressure. Probably 2014, I was taking 3 different medications for high blood pressure. My mother had high blood pressure, and I thought, okay, this is genetic. She was taking meds, I'm taking meds. She had She had high blood pressure, and so do I. Those are the cards I've been dealt. It's amazing, however, when you start to take care of yourself and you stop doing some things. I used to drink alcohol quite a bit to help with my anxiety. And it does work until it stops working. But in 2014, I stopped, and it's amazing how this vanished, basically vanished. I went from taking 3 meds down to 2, down to 1, and I had to go down to 1 because 2 was taking my heart too low. And eventually I got off the high blood pressure medication. I was never a big med guy, and I finally got off of them. So it disappeared. I don't know any other way other than to tell you that when you get yourself and your body and your mind under control, things can reverse. Your health can reverse to the good. I had trouble focusing at times. I'd be looking off in the distance, and I would rub my eyes constantly, trying to figure out, are my contacts, dirty? Do I need to clean them? I couldn't focus more than probably 25 or 30 feet past. It would look all fuzzy, kind of like this icon right here. So I had trouble focusing at times, and it really bugged me. I oftentimes had red eyes, and the story would be, oh yeah, it's just my allergies, just rubbing my eyes all the time. But I think it was because I really thought I was out of focus. And as it turns out, I don't have any focus issues anymore. The big one, insomnia. I could not sleep. I dreaded going to sleep. When it was time to go to bed, I dreaded going to sleep. I was taking meds to help with the sleeping, and those worked until they stopped working. And I would wake up probably 3 or 4 times at night, and I would be up for an hour to 2 hours every night. I'd eventually fall asleep and would wake up an hour or 2 later. So it was one of those things where the sleep I was getting was not good sleep at all. But I would constantly have things going on in my head, which I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. And really the last thing was, in a group of people, in a large group of people, sometimes I often thought I was alone. Like tonight, I'm in a room here with a bunch of fine people here, and I would feel alone. If I was sitting amongst a bunch of people, I often felt alone. And I would be saying to myself, am I the only one who is suffering from this? I got to be the only person in here who has a racing heart right now, who has a dry mouth, who can't focus, who's checking their pulse every 2 minutes. Am I the only one? And I found out recently in groups of people and talking about this, I'm not the only one. There are other people that are suffering just like me, which is why I'm here tonight to talk about it. Okay, what was it like? So I grew up in a small town north of here. I'm guessing there might be a couple of you that may not have heard of it before. But I grew up in Wisconsin Dells. Anybody know what that is? Okay, does anybody know what that is? Oh, there we go. Tommy Bartlett Ski Show. Okay, I did work at the ski show. I did not ski. I was not at the top of the pyramid. I did not pull the boat. I sold the tickets so that you could come and watch the show. In addition to selling tickets for the ski show, I also sold them for the ducks. How many of you have ridden the ducks before? Yes. Okay. Splashdown, I'm sure you probably bought a packet of postcards from the fine gentleman who talked about there was a chicken fence that they had here, and they said, well, we got chicken fence up, and we figure if it can hold a chicken, it can hold a duck. Okay, so that's why it was there, chicken fence and duck. We also sold the tickets for Noah's Ark. One of my neighbors growing up, 0 to 4 years old, I believe it was, 0 to 4 years old, was a gentleman by the name of Jack Waterman. Jack Waterman used to own Noah's Ark. Ironic, his last name literally is Waterman, so you might as well, if you're going to get into business, it might as well be water slides. I also grew up at the racetrack. I was going to actually put the racetrack here out in Rutland, between here and Stoughton. I was going to put that on there because I've been to that racetrack before, but I grew up at the Dells Motor Speedway. That's where I learned my numbers: 99, 88, 61, 81. So that's where I learned my numbers. All right, fan participation. What are some of your favorite memories of the Dells? Just raise your hand. Favorite memories of the Dells?
Storybook Garden.
Storybook Gardens. Somebody said that the other night too. Storybook Gardens. Okay. Fort Dells. We've got some old school people here. Not old people, old school people. Over here on this side? Memories of the Dells?
They used to have those Indian dances in the Dells.
Indian ceremonial. My mother danced there. Yes, which we'll see some pictures of my mother shortly.
I forget there's a museum there too.
Yep. Oh yeah, there is. So one of the things I just got to think about, hopefully, and even if you didn't answer a question, you started thinking about, what were some memorable things that you did in the Dells or when you went on vacation? So another technique I use, and the nice thing about having phones is you can usually bring up pictures of your favorite vacations. And I once in a while will scroll through those, especially if I'm not feeling the greatest. It's amazing. It changes your mind, it changes your feeling, it changes your thoughts, your emotions, and get myself out of it. Sometimes temporarily, but now the temporarily actually lasts a little bit longer when I get some pleasant thoughts. So the onset of my anxiety. So I talked about a timeline. And this timeline, I've had a couple of friends in recovery and a counselor that talked me through it that said, okay, when you had that panic attack or when you felt anxiety, we need to find out what led up to that. Okay, what were you doing? What happened? So what I did was I started building this timeline of those things, and I started to go back further and further and further and further until I kind of pinpointed it. And it took some help. It took some professional help for me to do that. So that's me at, I believe, about 3 or 4 years old. Nice sweater vest guy back there. Again, I love chili, so there I am again. But in the beginning, I was cared for by my great grandmother, Ellen. When I was born, she was 76 years old. She suffered from Parkinson's in the, I guess it'd be the end of her life, beginning of my life. And one of the things is I used to see her fall a lot. She fell. And I think that was probably the onset of some of my anxiety. Here you got this woman, she gives you, she feeds you, she takes you outside, she plays with you. She talked to me in the Ho-Chunk language when I was before 3 or 4 years old. She cared for me. She was probably as nice, maybe even better, because great grandmas are, than my mom. But I would see her fall a lot. I don't remember this, but I have aunts and uncles that would tell me these stories about her falling, and I would be beside myself. And oftentimes it was just her and I. And I would try to console her. I would try to help her up. And like I said, I don't remember, but the seeds were planted in my head. One of the things that happened when I was about 2 years old is we both got food poisoning. And back then, we didn't have microwaves, so you heated your food up just as best as you could. And I got food poisoning, both her and I. As an adult, she could handle a little bit better than I could. But I was in St. Clair Hospital in Baraboo for 30 days. I still don't know why I was in there for 30 days. But the story, legend goes that they first brought me in and my little 2-year-old body was 105 or 106 degrees. I think I shattered some records when they brought me in. And they had to pack my little body in some ice. And I was in there, they said, for an hour, trying to get my body temperature down. And I was in there for 30 days. So I think that's where I learned to be, talked about survive and advance. That's where I also learned how to survive. Again, this is all going on even before I can remember, but for some reason, I think that had a lot to do with why I'm here still today. There's my mom. Okay, this was her at about, I want to say 3 or 4 years old. Renee Thundercloud Decorah. I had a lot of resentments towards her when I was growing up. And it was probably a love-dislike relationship with her. Not because of anything she really did to me. Oftentimes there was a lot of things that she did to herself. She lived, when I was growing up, she lived the life of an 18 to 23-year-old. Now, I don't know what you were like when I was 18 or 23. I was not taking care of a 1 or 2 or 3-year-old toddler. I was out, working, having fun, and living the life of an 18 or 23-year-old. She continued to do that, hence my grandma Ellen used to take care of me. And I think some of the resentment and then some of the anxiety started to occur when there were nights where she wouldn't come home. And my great-grandmother would go to sleep and she would tuck me in. And that's also where my insomnia started. I couldn't sleep. One of the things I remember to this day is she would tell me, I'll be home when the little hand gets on the 10 and when the big hand gets on the 12. That's when I'll be home. So I would sit there I couldn't tell the time, but I could see when it would get up there. I would sit and wait and look out the window and wait and wait and wait. And finally, that got to there. And I was always usually okay because I was optimistic. She's going to be coming home. And then it got past here, and that's where I started to worry. And my anxiety would skyrocket. She would always say, if I'm not back by then, go put yourself to sleep, brush your teeth. And I would go do all of that stuff, lay in my own bed. And I would worry about where she was, what's happened to her. Unfortunately, as a 2 or 3-year-old, you just don't have much experience that's going to hurt you. Until one night, she didn't come home. She'd often say she was at a friend's house, but one night she got in a fight. And to this day, I do kind of know what happened. But I got myself up the next morning. My mom wasn't home. Went outside, got myself some food, got ready, and I went outside to play, and a car pulls up. And down at the bottom of the hill, car pulled up, and I said, oh, it's my mom. So I hustled down there, and I look at my mom, and she's got, her eyes are both swollen shut. And I thought, what happened? And she had gotten in a fight the night before. Bad thing for me, because now every time she went out and when the clock went past 12, I was not thinking, is she going to come home? I was thinking, is she going to get into another fight? And I thought that all the time. So I think that's where the onset of my anxiety started. The other thing that happened is my grandmother's health started to decline. With Parkinson's, it started, and again, I don't remember much of this, but I do know that she had to be in a wheelchair for quite a bit until the very end. So adolescent years, my father moved in with us. I really haven't talked about him much because he wasn't in the picture much. I was really essentially raised, father figures were my grandpa Emerson Thundercloud, and I also had a great uncle, Reuben Thundercloud. They were responsible for picking me up all the time after practices, making sure I had things that I needed, and essentially took care of me. As I got a little bit older, my younger brother, Troy, came and was born. He was 8, 9 years younger than me, and I learned to be a parent very quickly because my parents started their life as alcoholics. Alcoholism took over our lives, and they spent a great deal of their time trying to make sure they had their alcohol for the day, and I was in charge of taking care of myself and also taking care of my younger brother, Troy, and making sure he got on the bus, changed his diapers, all of those things that a parent should do, I was doing. So when I became a parent, it was like second nature to me. So adolescent years, a big thing in my life that hopefully you got from the earlier slides was basketball, football, athletics, and school were a savior for me as I was growing up. I loved my teachers. I loved my coaches, and hence I got into doing the same thing. So what they passed down to me, I'm passing down to others. Got to play some varsity basketball as a freshman. Did quite a bit of this when I was a kid. This is my oldest son, and this is my youngest son shooting out in our old backyard back in Waunakee. But I did this constantly. And hence I think I ended up being pretty decent. 1984, I talked about my grandfather, Emerson Thundercloud. He got cancer. How many of you know who Geraldine Ferraro is? Okay. And she was the running mate to who? Walter Mondale? Yes. Okay. So we went to see Walter Mondale and Geraldine Ferraro on the Capitol Square. My sophomore year, I remember it like it was yesterday, 1984. We drive in from the Dells, get on a bus, go, and we're there, and it's the greatest thing. Hey, this guy's going to be the next president of the United States. We get home, and I'm at the school waiting for my grandpa Emerson to pick me up, because that's what he did. Pick me up, take me home, pick me up, make sure I had my stuff, and he wasn't there. So my uncle and an Uncle Gary that lived about two blocks from the high school, and I walked over there, and my Aunt Patty was there. And I said, hey, do you know where Grandpa Emerson is? Yeah, he had to go to the hospital. And they're not sure what's wrong, but they think it's cancer. Of all the people that should tell me that, I don't think it should have been an aunt. It should have been a parent. My mom, maybe my dad, but it wasn't. And shortly after that, October 84, he made it until December of 84, and he passed away from prostate cancer. At about that time then, we lived in the country. So I left home. We lived about 7 miles outside of the Dells. And that time I moved into the Dells, and I left my home. And I moved in with my uncle Sam and his family. And that's what Native Americans do. If somebody can't take care of their own, somebody else is going to take care of them. And in this case, my Uncle Sam took me in, and it was great. Because I didn't have to be exposed to some of the things I was exposed to, alcoholism, and I could walk to school, which then I could continue to play sports and go to school. So it was great. I cruised through college, married life until early 2000s when some of this anxiety started to kick in. So we were going to do this. How many of you know where this is? This is the barn. This is the University of Wisconsin field house. Okay. My senior year, because of all of that, I'd rather be outside than inside with my parents. I was outside all the time shooting, and we made it to the state championship game. There's me down here, and the three-point arc didn't exist my senior year. Didn't exist for me. The next year it came in, and I missed the three-pointer by 1 year. This is our state championship trophy that we won that year. We beat the Clintonville Truckers. I remember the score, I think it was 62-50. So we had an awesome year. And that guy that you saw in the blue sweatshirt earlier that got inducted, he's over here on the bench somewhere. He was a part of that whole situation, which was kind of cool to share that with him. So there were some questions that I'm going to ask, but I'm going to fly through them. The one thing that, another coping skill that I use is, what are 5 things you can see? You know, for me, I look around. I can see a camera person, I can see some weights. So when I start to get that squirrel cage of anxiety going, I start to look around. What are 5 things I can see? What are 5 things I can feel? I got the clicker in my hand. I can feel the carpet a little bit. I can feel the cold water going down. This is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique of coping with some anxiety. What are some things you can hear? What are some things you can hear right now? Fan, okay. Me. Yeah, so you can start to focus on things you can hear, feel, see. But you smell anything? What do you think you could smell here? I guarantee if you go to a high school game, basketball game, what's the first thing you can smell when you walk in? All right, the women in the crowd, ladies in the crowd the other night said, smelly boys. When I walk into a gym, I can smell popcorn at a high school game. It's distinct. And what are some things you can taste? They tell people with anxiety to make sure you always have something to put into your mouth. Candy, okay? Automatically changes, that tastes good. And all of a sudden you're thinking about something other than worry, fear, all that stuff. So basically 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, they're called grounding exercises. Things you can see, feel, hear, smell, and touch. And if you can go through that, and it takes practice until you get good at it, but if you try it, it does work. It works for me. So I'm going to go through my coping skills now. And very much like college or high school kids, if there's something that catches your eye, you know, take your phone out and take a picture. Again, any of these things I will share with you anytime. So if you want, I'm going to have my email address up there. I'll have my phone number up there. If you want any of these slides, I will share them with you. So, medicated. I was not a big medication person. I don't know what it's going to do to me long term. I just wanted to get off of them, and hence I got off the high blood pressure medicine. 3 of them, got off them. I was glad that happened. But I'm also glad that I got medicated. I'm not here to sell anything, so I'm just going to talk about chemistry. When you add cream to coffee, it changes the color. When you add sugar, it changes the taste. For me, it makes it taste better. But same thing that's going on in the brain. It changed my chemistry of my brain, and I no longer have, they still pop in there, but not as often. So about January 1 or 2 of last year, I got on a medication that has essentially kind of saved my life. I was doing the same thing back in the early 2000s. I was taking medication, but I did not have a recovery team to go with that. I did not have friends who know and trust, that I can talk to. I have a counselor that I see about 2 times a month. I have people in recovery that I can call on my phone. Hey, I'm having a rough day today. And they can talk me through things. Primary care person. My doctor knows everything about me. I used to hide things from him. Now I don't. What I hide from him, he doesn't know, and he can't help me. If I'm truthful about things and I trust my doctor, and you can trust your doctor. I could trust my doctor, and he would give me some things. And once I could open up and get some help, I got help. And again, the other thing is, oh, shoot. Okay. Get present. So this was supposed to be Maria's Pizza. Yep, this is supposed to be Maria's Pizza, and this was supposed to be the library. I think I got the other sides, but that's okay. So, get present. Where am I? What am I doing? I'm here. That helps a ton. Really, those are the 2 major things. We also talked, the getting present was where am I? What am I doing? What's the weather like? I would self-talk myself through those things. Oh, here it is. Yes. So, Maria's Pizza. Yes. Oregon Senior Center. Where am I? Where are we? At the library. Excellent. So, knowledgeable about the signs and symptoms of my mental illness. So, I went over those. But there's just a battery of things that we talked about. The heart attack, the shortness of breath. Once I start to feel those things come on, I can start to talk myself through it. All right, just relax. Breathe, inhale, exhale, and that stuff goes away. I could never control it before. This would start to lead to this. This would lead to that. That would lead to eventually that at times where I felt like I was going to have a heart attack. It's not a great way to go through a day. It's not much fun. But I got through it. But those are some of the symptoms. And when I know my symptoms and when I know it and feel it coming on, I can do something about it. Before I couldn't. Remember a fun and positive and enjoyable time in your life. Think about that. That's a coping skill. Riding the swings. So again, we talked about favorite vacation. Pull out your phone, look at some pictures of a fun time, and it changes. It changes your mindset, and that's all you got to do. That's all I got to do. That's what works for me. Get grounded. Again, we talked about who am I? Where am I at? The other thing I do is I journal my thoughts. What am I going to do? I have some goals for each day. At the end, I review my day. We'll go through the journaling stuff here at the end. Again, we talk about the who am I? I'm married, I've been teaching this long, self-talk. Get grounded, again, we talked about that. Other things I do some meditating, 5 to 10 minutes per day. Usually more like 10, but if I've got a shorter amount of time in between classes or whatever, I'll do a quick 5-minute one. And just like anything that I've done, whether it was teaching or coaching, I go and I try to find the best in my area. I send emails. How do you do this? How do you do that? How do you coach this? How do you coach that? I applied this also to meditating. Meditating, when I think of meditating, I immediately thought of Buddhism. I'm not a practicing Buddhist, but I've been open-minded about things. I told you I'm curious, a lifelong learner, so I typed in meditating in Madison or near me, and boom, it came up with a meditation center on Park Street. And I met this awesome lady. I never asked her what her age was, but I want to say she was probably upper 70s maybe. I don't think she was 80, but her name was Jen Kelsang Gomlin. The nicest lady one of the nicest ladies on planet Earth. She did not try to get my bank accounts. She did not try to sell me Buddhism. I found out it's not a religion, it's a spiritual practice. And she taught me how to meditate. They start with it was a 90-minute session, the first 10 to 15 minutes, breathing in, blowing out, watching the rise and fall of your chest, follow the breath in, follow the breath out, and then she would also be talking about coping skills. After the 15 minutes were done, she would give me some things, not just me, but the people in attendance, give them some things that would help them through life, and then we would end with a 15 to 20 minute, a longer meditation at the end. So I went to the people that I thought were the best at meditating, and I learned how to meditate. So I stole or I borrowed their meditation, and I continue to use that to this day. I used to try to do it before on YouTube, but I couldn't grasp the concept. So I had to go to the meditation center and learn it. Now it means a lot more when I can boot it up here. So just like Aaron Rodgers said, RELAX, relax, okay, and it works. Exercise. You got to exercise. You got to stay in shape. I don't want to have a heart attack, so I got to get my heart stronger. And that's YouTube, and that's also an elliptical machine. Service work. I referee. How many of you know this guy? He is the best altar boy? Helper at St. Bernard's in St. Denis in Madison. That's Jocko from Channel 15. I would say that he's probably a friend of mine. I wouldn't say a great friend, but he's a friend of mine. But I referee. It's service work. You still got to pay for gas to get the car there, so they do give us a little money. But I love refereeing. I can't play anymore. I do coach a little bit, but I get to run up and down. I get my exercise by refereeing. I do a lot of self-help and recovery meetings, Zoom meeting and also in person, all over the place in Madison. You can find them all over the country, all over the world. So we get on Zoom calls. This is kind of a special Zoom call. This is my college teammates. I don't know if you recognize that guy here. Anybody recognize him? Bo Ryan, yes. Okay, Bo Ryan was my college coach, and we did a little Zoom call with us. There I am in the middle there. Okay, so did a Zoom meeting, do Zoom meetings, do in-person meetings, self-help. NAMI is a great source for getting information dealing with mental health. They got a lot of mental health resources. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. There's a Dane County chapter, and there's also a State of Wisconsin chapter. There are different anonymous groups that you can attend, and also group counseling. So those things I have done because I need to. It keeps my life manageable. And then one of the things that I'm proud to share, proud to talk about, is a work support group that I helped start in the school district of Waunakee. I couldn't find, I think I told you this earlier, I could not find people like me that were out at some of these self-help. There's a teacher or two, but I couldn't find people like me. Teachers, coaches, people that work with kids, people that have their own kids, same kind of schedule I do. So sometimes you have to create your own stuff. So I helped create this Waunakee staff support group, and we held our last mock meeting last night before we start real meetings in a couple of weeks, and there's a definite need for it. COVID really affected a lot of teachers in our profession, and it was because of maybe a lack of support, or it was also probably, which coincided with it, a lack of asking for help. What do I do? We all had to go through the same stuff during COVID, which was online teaching, Zoom meeting teaching, learning how to teach online, something none of us had to ever learn, but we had to learn it, and we had to learn it quick, and we had to deliver it. And then the other big thing is we couldn't see our kids. So that isolation ramped up a lot more because I couldn't see the kids that I was teaching, that I was used to seeing. They, oftentimes when I was in my anxiety and anxiousness, the kids helped me more than I actually helped the kids. They really kept me going and kept me out of my head. And I worked with them, but the minute I'd walk out of class, I was back in, thinking about the future, thinking about the past, the present. But they would help get me present. And freshmen for me do that. Find a hobby. Cook, clean, garden, okay? Travel. Anybody recognize that place? Big hole in the ground. That's what I thought until you see it. It's amazing, the Grand Canyon. There's my son-in-law, Jacob. There's my son, Sam. We were at a grill your own place in between Poinette and Portage. You can grill your own. There's supporting our favorite team, the Packers. So family time is important to me more than ever. And I think I'm starting to be accepted a little more than that irritable Tim and that tired Tim and that tired dad and angry dad and he's out to lunch dad. Now I think I'm a little more present, at least I hope. I always look at two sides of the coin. There's a head, there's a tail. Great president, who is that? JFK, okay? So what I do with the coins, and this really helps me a lot, it helps me to pause. Okay, this is negative. What's the other side? Quick story. I'm honoring my Uncle Sam, who I moved in with, who took me in. I put him up for the Badger Honor Flight. My Uncle Sam, unfortunately, had a stroke during COVID. So he doesn't move and talk real well on his right side. He doesn't walk real well. He's probably going to need a wheelchair, and he's not going to want a wheelchair because he's proud. So all of that was racing in my head, a lot of negatives. And I actually thought, I don't think we're going to be able to do this. There's no way. I love my Uncle Sam, but we're not going to be able to do this. So what did I do? I flipped the coin over. All right, what are the positives? There's going to be a doctor there. There's going to be nurses there. There's going to be wheelchairs, and I can push, and there's going to be other helpers. So immediately I reversed. I said, no, we can do this. This will be perfect. Had I not had that strategy or used that strategy, I would have went immediately downhill, and I said, hey, we're going to cancel this. We just can't do it. And it wouldn't have been because of him. It would have been because of me. So again, I don't have to live life like that. It still creeps in there. I just told you. And as I was telling you all of those negative stuff, I could feel the hair on my neck stand up because it still comes back to me. But I reversed it, and I got those good feelings. We're going to be in the sun. I'm going to see the Lincoln Memorial. We're going to see the Vietnam Memorial. We're going to go to the Pentagon. They told me I can't take pictures of the Pentagon or they're going to arrest us. So I don't want to get arrested. But anyway, so two sides of the coin. This is one of my big ones. Pause. Positives, negatives. For me, the positives always outweigh the negatives. Self-talk. Now, this is that insomnia I talked about. I put a question mark here. Bills, shopping. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but how many of you sit, lay in bed, thinking about bills, shopping, stuff you got to do tomorrow. I wish I would have been better at this back then. All of those things that keep you awake and your mind racing. I don't do that anymore. This person right here, I was always thinking about tomorrow, or I was always thinking about yesterday. And I wish I would have put something in there. I'm now thinking about the present. And when I get like this at night, here's what I do. And this happened last night because I was thinking about something with my daughter. Tim, just go to sleep because you can't do anything about it right now. You're not going to get on your computer. You can't talk to anybody on your phone. Nobody's awake. Go to sleep, dude. Roll over, out. And I was never like that. I was always flip-flopping around. I could never sleep. Insomnia. And if I slept, I'd wake up half an hour later and be up for another 2 hours. You don't have to live life like that if you get some of these coping skills and you use them. The big one, resentments. I told you earlier that I had a resentment, a love-dislike relationship with my mom. I want to say I'm coming up on the 1-year anniversary, and I have to look in my journal because it's written in there. But my mom passed away. She was born on August 16th. Anybody know who was born on August 16th? His last name's Aaron. Elvis? Yes. I thought somebody said Elvis. Elvis was born on August 16th, wasn't he? Okay. She died on June 21st, the first day of summer, 1997. I remember the day I got the call. Bad day. But I never had a chance to make some amends with her. I needed to tell her, and I wanted to tell her for so long that I wanted to apologize for the way I acted. And it wasn't because the things she did to me, it was because of the things she did to herself. And in turn then, some neglect came in there, and I was oftentimes felt alone for a long, long time. So about a year ago, last year, I went to her grave, and I got some help from some friends, and I said I need to go and apologize for some things I did. And even though she's not here, I can at least go to her gravesite and do this. And I talked about how I apologized for being angry with her. I apologized for not being around as much. And she probably suffered the way I did, with anxiety, depression. And she just never got the help. And I would like to think that if she did, she'd still be here today, but she's not. So when I made that amends to her, and I apologized for all of those things, almost like that, when I finished my presentation for my master's, weight was lifted off my chest, weights off my shoulders, and really that was probably the turning point in the last year or more, is when I did that. This picture was actually taken on Mother's Day weekend. And I can honestly say, and look you all straight in the face, I never, ever gave my mom flowers on Mother's Day. But after I did that amends in March of last year, my wife was with me and my daughter was with me. And we bought this thing at a grocery store. It's a big globe and it had a flower in it. And I went over there and I put it down there. And I'd never done that before, partly because I disliked her for some of the things that she did. So, weight lifted off my chest. If you have any kind of resentments, make some amends for them, especially if you have people that are still here. If it's a sister, if it's a brother, if it's a coworker, do it when they're here. I can't tell you if it would have made any difference. It made a difference when I did it to her at her grave. So I got this picture from Arizona. We were just in Arizona, and they happened to be side by side. I don't know why it was like why it happened like this, but it did. So since then, this is me more often than not now. I have a smile on my face, and it's real. It's authentic. It's genuine. Not that it wasn't before, but I think a lot of times I was putting a face on. I was wearing a mask, pretending I was happy and I wasn't, pretending I was calm but I was anxious. This is pretty much the same night. This is how I used to be. Who has a sad face when they got an ice cream cone in their hand? I was. I don't know why I pose like that, but this is usually me now. Ice cream cone in my hand, smile on my face, because I'm genuinely happier and genuinely anxiety free. So, last thing, I'll quickly zip through this. This has been kind of the key to my success a little bit, because I have to have a start and I have to have an end to my day. I usually do some journaling. I read a self-help book. Reminds me of some things I need to be aware of. I set myself some goals for the day, and I try to keep them somewhat simple. Set a morning goal and I check it off at night. I'm usually able to check them off. Feelings, how am I feeling in the morning and in the evening? And genuinely, I cannot wait to get up in the morning. Remember when I said I used to hate going to bed? I also hated getting up, because I didn't want to go to school, or I didn't want to go to work, or I didn't want to wake up. Now I can't wait to get up. Put a cat in here because we're cat guys. So, AM journaling. I have a grateful gratitude list, and here's mine. Okay, there's the journal. Okay, I have a higher power, who I call God. Some of you have something else. Have something that you believe in. Rabbit's foot, rubbing some chicken bones together. I don't know. Have something. Okay. I am genuinely free of anxiety. Some people say once they get rid of some anxiety, they got rid of the cause of the problem. It could be gambling. It could be eating. It could be anything that's doing some mental harm to you. It could be substance abuse. It could be cutting something out of your diet that's harming you. Family is important to me. My home. This used to be my home in Waunakee. When you see toilet paper in your trees in Waunakee, something good has happened. Okay? It's not like the old days we're going to go on TP, your teacher that you didn't like. In Waunakee, it means something went well. Okay? So that's my old house in Waunakee. Health. I got into a little bit of running 5-6 years ago. I don't run as much anymore. Waunakee run. Recovery groups. School. I wish I had this. I wish this was a little bit bigger. This is me about 5 or 6 years ago reading to some sophomores, 15 and 16-year-olds, and they're all sitting there attentive. That's the kind of kids we have in Waunakee, but they all sat there and they listened to me read the book. That was probably better for me than it was for them, because it got me out of myself. So read some books. So genuinely, I try to stay away from fear, anger, worry. Those controlled my life. Fear, anger, and worry. They're always there a little bit, but I recognize them when they come around. Bedtime. My favorite guy, Bugs Bunny. Before I go to bed, I recap the day. I have a goal. I check them off. All those things. Feelings. How do I feel? Genuinely, I feel very good when I go to sleep. I can't wait to go to sleep. And remember, I did not want to go to sleep. I have a grateful list, and you already saw that. Pretty much as the same as in the morning. Also do highlights. What was the highlight of my day? I'll kind of talk about it a little bit. Didn't start out great, but it ended pretty good. Things I learned. I've got some new friends here in Oregon that showed up tonight and want to learn about some of the stuff. Days you have in succession. How many days you stopped eating carbs? How many days you stopped gambling online? How many days you're anxiety free? I've been really anxiety free for about 400 days. Some of the regular, normal anxiety comes around, but really the genuine, the stuff I had before to deal with are essentially gone. And then ranking. 10 out of 10 being the best. I've not had a day below 9.5. Not a day below 9.5 in about 468 days. So I keep track of that. And I can go back then and I have a timeline of, all right, when did I start going downhill? When did I have an 8.8 day? And I can figure out, and I can do some hunting, what caused that. So here's my nightly reading, because it reinforces what I need to be aware of. So I'll quickly, you can probably read along, but when I retire at night, I constructively review my day. Were we resentful? I got to stay away from resentments. Was I selfish? Was I looking out for myself? I need to stay away from that. Was I dishonest or afraid? Used to be dishonest when people would ask me, how are you feeling today, Tim? I feel great. I'd put on a great face because I was trying to cover up how horrible I felt. I was oftentimes afraid of the future, afraid of the past. Do we owe an apology? I oftentimes probably should apologize for my behavior or things I did, things I said, or things I didn't do, or things I didn't say. Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? I have people that I can discuss on the phone. If something happens or if I need some help, I can call somebody immediately. Were we kind and loving? I try to be kind and loving all the time now. Toward all. What could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? I was thinking about other people. I should have been really thinking of myself because I needed to make myself better so I could help other people. But oftentimes I wasn't, so I couldn't help other people. I wasn't of service to anybody. Or are we thinking of what we could do for others or what we could pack into the stream of life? I've got somebody here who would verify. We try to pack as much in a day in a vacation as we can because I don't want to miss out on anything because I missed out on a lot being anxious and nervous. But we must be careful not to drift into, when I start to worry, coping skills. Remorse, go to a coping skill. Morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. I want to be of use to myself so that I can be of use to others. After making a review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. So I read that every single night before I go to sleep. And it helps me to recognize and reinforce what I need to stay away from. So, something happened this morning, a life-changing event. Spiritual experience. I don't know if you've ever had any of those, but I had one. It happened at 4:30, but it really happened to be about 7:30 today. This little boy came into the world today. Rory Robert Peters entered our world. And we got a phone call yesterday, or a text message that our daughter went into labor, all that good stuff that goes along with it. And we were clueless for kind of the rest of the day. We wondered, we worried. Because I have these coping skills, and I looked at things and I said, okay, what could happen? A ton of things could happen. And I would spin out of control. Something bad's gonna happen. Flip the coin over. I can't wait to see this guy. And so I went from dread and morbid reflection to optimism, energetic, and I want to go to sleep because I can't wait to get up and find out if he's here yet. And he showed up this morning at 4:30 a.m. So I am now a choka, a grandpa, officially. So here's my contact information. Please feel free to reach out. I've got my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I got my email address. If you could kindly, if you have some time, find some time to email me some thoughts, some feedback, good, bad, constructive criticism. I will take it all because I want to try to continue this path I'm on, which is to help people who suffer or have suffered or know somebody who suffers. So, email me. Again, I want to say thank you to Kara, to Jordan working the camera back there, and to all of you friends and family that showed up and people that are here, hopefully because you're here to help somebody else. Thank you for coming.
We do have one question from online.
One question, okay?
And it was, when did you feel safe as a child? And when in your life have you felt safe?
So you saw my journey. I probably started to feel safe when I moved in with my Uncle Sam. I moved in from out of town. One thing we didn't have growing up for probably a majority of my all the way up through adolescence, 15 or 16, we usually didn't have a car. And if I wanted to go into town, it was about a 7-mile bike ride. Not the best, but physically it was great for me. But I would have to often ride my bike into town with another neighbor friend. And I would go in and out. Certainly when I got married, my wife helped me through a lot of things. And then certainly when I started to have kids, I felt great because you had that love that you can't get anywhere else from your kids. It's just genuine, and then you're doing and reciprocating back. But there would always be things that would come into my life that would be triggers that would trigger my anxiety, and I didn't know they were coming, and I couldn't anticipate them, and I would be checked out. And mentally, I'd be there physically, but I would struggle at times. Struggle so much in the end that I was missing a tremendous amount of school, and I just wanted to be in my bedroom by myself and just leave me alone. And then finally, I said, I need some help. Help me. And my school district did a wonderful job of being able to do that, and I'm forever grateful because I think they saved my life. But that's about when. Yes.
I think you mentioned you did, or you see a counselor 2 times a month?
I see a counselor 2 times a month.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I also do recovery meetings, both online and in person, every day, and sometimes twice a day. The Zoom meetings, you can get on them and turn them on in your car and listen to them, and then when it's your turn to talk or speak or share on a subject, they call on you and they can unmute you, and you can talk and share and ask questions about things you need. I don't go to them anymore because I need help now. I go to them because there's going to be some time in the future where I will need those skills. So I want to keep them sharp so that when those times come of anxiety, depression, fear, grief, that I'm going to be able to handle those because I'm working on those skills right now. It's much like playing basketball or throwing a football. If you don't practice, they're going to get rusty, and you might even lose some of that. I don't want to lose it because I know I'm going to need it at some point in my future. Yes.
Who's the counselor in the area?
It is Connections Counseling in Verona. Is where I go.
Is there a particular person there?
They got a bunch of guys. Yeah. Other questions?
Jim, how long is counseling session?
Mine lasts an hour. And they definitely help because they listen. And it's not that nobody listened. They just didn't know what they were listening for, nor did I say, here's how I'm feeling. Somebody, please listen to me. I just never did that. I held it all in. But it's amazing when you get it out there and you tell people what you have going on and you say that you need some help. Me being in the school district I am and the friendships I've built, people came not necessarily out of the woodwork, they were always there, but they came in droves to help me out. And I'm grateful for that. Yes?
You mentioned you had been on like 3 blood pressure medicines. Was that all at once? Or
Yes.
At various times that you
It started out with 1, and I was glad to take it because my mom had it. I got it. And then 2, and then 3, and that was coinciding and working probably with anxiety and, who knows what else, the stress of life. Everybody's got the stress of life. They don't have to take 3 blood pressure medications to survive. I had to because I also had this thing, it's like a computer running in the background constantly. I didn't know how to shut it off, and it was always running, and it would get stronger and stronger and stronger until it would result in a panic attack. And I only had 3 of those. And I don't wish those on my worst enemy because they are not much fun. And I told you one, I wanted to have a heart attack. I thought I was having a heart attack.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
I will be sending out an email to everybody who registered, so you'll be getting a follow-up email either tomorrow or next week. But that's what we have planned today, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
You have anything left on paper?
I don't.